Kanchan has worked as editor with British Information Services, head of advocacy and communication with Oxfam UK, and managed HIV/AIDS communication for UNICEF. However, the turning point in his life came when maverick filmmaker Mr. Mahesh Bhatt spotted a storyteller in him and encouraged him to go behind the camera. His innovative communication project on HIV/AIDS, involving children from over 200 schools in Delhi, Mumbai, Nagaland, ranked one of the 3 most innovative communication projects in the world by the UN conference and led to the National AIDS Control Organization honoring him with the Most Innovative Communication Professional Award. Before that, his work on disaster preparedness, mitigation, and the need for psychosocial interventions in the aftermath of disasters led Indian Medical Association honoring him with the Bharat Ratna Social Award. His very first feature film, Aisa Kyun Hota Hai, on communal polarization and young people, won Special Jury Award at the Italian International Film Festival on Cinema and Religion, and it was declared tax-free wherever it was released. So far, Mr. Kanchan has made over 50 commercial, corporate, and documentaries on a range of social development and economic issues. Currently, he is the CEO of Media Today, which is one of the pioneers of media tracking and impact analysis of media coverage in India, and is also the director for Center for Advocacy and Communication. I would request our Dean, Academics, Professor Maitri, to please present him with a bouquet for our appreciation. I would also request him to please present a bouquet as a token of our appreciation to Mr. Mahesh Bhatt. We will now be having an interactive discussion.
Is it okay in case if I sit here? Okay. Hi everybody, good morning. And मैं भट्ट साहब से जितना दूर भागता हूँ उतना मुझे करीब बुलाते हैं. Dr. Maitri is a good friend of mine, and when he has asked me that in case if I could request Mr. Mahesh Bhatt to come here, I think that'll be something, not just a big privilege for myself, but it will be a fantastic start for the career of lots of young students, because I am father of 2, a son and a daughter, who have only this year actually, completed their MBA. So I know actually what it meant to have, Mahesh Bhatt to start the inaugural session. At the start, Professor Singh has mentioned about that you have a tradition of inviting CEOs and the corporate people. And trust me, having been in corporate communication for almost 30 years, that's what I was a little shocked, and I was also a little shocked, that I put such a long period of time. I have rarely come across a person who is more efficient in managing his time, managing his resources, who is more skillful in terms of, marketing his products than Bhatt Sahab himself. I think it's coming. So once I was asking Bhatt Sahab, it's now close to 13, 14 years, more than that. I think if it's a way of ragging me, then actually it's a kind of offense. Every single responsible person has to be tried for this ragging, Dr. Maitri. So once I was asking Bhatt Sahab is that, sir, how come you have managed to achieve so much in your life? How have you been so successful? He said, my formula is very, very simple. I sleep very late, wait for the entire world to sleep, and wake up much before the world wakes up. And in between, I just do my work. And another thing which was very shocking for me actually when I first time visited his office, there are no storage in his room. There's nothing actually, that he would like to file. he would like to finish his work then and there only. And if the work of the day is pending, he will not have his dinner. These are some of the, very, very, I would say, unique qualities which I have observed. But I would like to, these are always opportunities for me to dig deeper, because every time I listen to Bhatt Saab, there is something, a new story to listen. And today I listened to the story about how he, fed this piece of flesh. I did not know. Last 15 years he shared so many things with me, but this is again actually, something new to learn. And I am sure, this particular session, we will be able to figure out a lot of, new things, which perhaps, I as a sort of CEO or a manager would like to learn, from him. So, when they talk about marketing, the very first thing they like to figure out, who their audience is. What is the need of the audience? For almost 40 years, you have been doing this work, so successfully. How you do this?
Well, to be honest, if you ask me whether I have stumbled on that holy grail, and I have, now that I'm in position or at Formula, then the answer is no, no. I have to concede that most of the times things don't work. Sometimes it works. The strike rate in the Hindi film industry or the entertainment industry, film industry, is 1:5. My formula has been double your rate of failure, and your hits are more also. So I've never been frightened of failing, and all I know is you have to keep on demolishing yourself. You have to invite what is called creative destruction. And if you listen to your consumer, the word consumer, or your audience, then they are telling you all the time what to do. Like I keep on telling my colleagues who are seniors, why the hell do you want to impose your kind of songs onto a generation which doesn't want to hear that kind of song? I used to feel revolted when my parents used to say, why don't you like the voice of a particular singer which was their darling, and I liked Kishore Kumar, who was not considered at that time the voice. So every generation imposes its own outdated, outmoded ideas. I listen to them. If this is my audience, I respect them. I don't talk down to them. I listen to them. And by listening to them, they shape my pitch and the tenor of the product that I make. And also the most important thing which I did was in 1998 when I turned 50. I said I'm not going to direct anymore. Why did I do that? I realized that though I have a large amount of knowledge and I have a huge body of work, I discovered every filmmaker gets dated. We all come with our expiry date stamped on ourselves. And this was a part of reinvention, is to remove myself from the director's chair and say, now the younger breed of filmmakers will come and make films. Because they are closer to them. They know their syntax, they know their idiom. And what they need is direction, inspiration. So I think marketing, I had to remove myself, knowing that my style is dated. My idiom is dated. So by removing myself, it's like the rocket, I give the analogy of a rocket. When it takes off, it has to shed a part of itself by giving another thrust to it upwards. And then that's how it goes. So that's what I did. And I only know that when you come to a peak with a particular formula or a particular kind of cinema, then that's where the death occurs. So when my Raz was doing almost 89, 90 crore business, I discovered that this won't work now. We have perfected in the last 10 years a kind of cinema. Now it's wearing out. So we moved back. How I've kept myself relevant. and realizing that you are the part of the problem by removing yourself and giving the reins to younger people. You know something more than I know. So before I come here, I ask you, I have the intelligence to know that I don't know. I would rather be stupid than pretend to be intelligent. Tell me, Ajay, what is the area I'm supposed to talk about? This is the area. You are intelligent, I listen to you. And within that, I keep my talk. If it works, it works. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. That's how I've marketed myself.
One of the things, sir, very often we think that we need to learn from you how to cope with failures. Because the thing is that the way you had your early childhood, which you have depicted in your film Zakhm, also in your film Zanam as well, if that basically is taken as a background and then superimpose it with 4 consecutive flop films you have made, and then also the heartbreak, you talked about, your relationship, but at the same time, what you have gone through. And just now you have also mentioned about, Jia Khan's tragic suicide. What is the best thing to cope with failure? How one can cope with failure and still, keep marching ahead?
In the Gita, Lord Krishna tells Arjuna, bring me your failures. We were talking in the office with the professor, lady professor, and she gave a brilliant imagery to me about Sadesati. Sadesati is that phase that comes as Saturn comes into your astrological chart, and that's supposed to be a kiss of death. And she said it's like, somebody explained to her that it's like some dust on your clothes. You wash it, you squeeze it, and you dry it, and finally come out clean. So I think that was a brilliant analogy, image. And I think that's what has happened to me. I owe everything to my failures. If I had not failed, I wouldn't be where I am. I failed in my way to success. The word failure is not a bad word. In fact, some school of thought says that, oh God, may life bless you with a failure. It says. So that once you are shattered by life, and in my business, in our business, there are 2 times you do brilliant work writing. When either you write from a broken heart or an overflowing heart. I started from a broken heart. And that's why the movies that have touched the consciousness of people, like Singh Star was saying, the movies which came from a heart which was broken and was trying to cope with life. I give an analogy. The analogy is of when a grain of sand gets into the craw of an oyster, it causes the oyster a lot of pain. The oyster, in order to escape from the pain, converts it into a pearl. The intention of the oyster is not to manufacture pearls. It just wants to escape. The best movies that came out of my heart, or flowered out of my heart, the best work I've done is The Taste of Life. While life burns, I was struggling to cope. I was struggling to keep my sanity. I was picking up the pieces of my life and trying to understand. And those became the best works. So they are my gropings. Somebody asked Einstein, how do you write? How do you work, sir? And he said, I grope. You guys think that we people are just, every phrase we say, every scene we write are, just flows out of us. No. We struggle. We fumble. We fail. And it's only our successes are showcased by the media. We have been disasters, so don't get frightened. There's nothing brilliant about anybody. The greatness is all attributed. The only thing, in the language of boxing, as Muhammad Ali said, he who can take the maximum punishment has the little bit chance of becoming a heavyweight champion. Every time they knocked me on the mat, I got up and said, I won't let you count me out. So once they put you on the mat, they start counting. 1, 2, 3. So before they count 10, get up and give one whack to the referee and start playing the game again.
There is always, sir, this issue of, people define marketing in a very, very different kind of, there are different definitions, you and I couldn't have learned, actually, that's why we couldn't go to the college. But the very fact, very often you keep on mentioning is that marketing is nothing but figuring it out, who has got my money into their pocket and how can I get, my money from their pocket.
That's what you said.
So this is what I always figure it out. I mean, somewhere I read your interview in Telegraph where you said that I'm a prostitute who's not interested in your praise, but interested in your money. Now you have already touched upon this particular thing from a maker of Arth and Saransh, going down basically for the sake of money. How are you able to resolve this identity conflict within yourself?
There was no conflict in me. The conflict was there in the media or in the people. Whether you're selling soap or you're selling salvation, you're still selling. You're a part of the marketplace. The person who's marketing moksha is packaging it and selling it. There's a market for that. Prostitutes have a place in the scheme of things. So do gurus. Somebody wants comfort through gurus. Somebody wants it through a prostitute. What's so wrong with that? I'm a pleasure peddler. I know that. I provide pleasure. And pleasure is not a bad word. It's the be all and the end all of people's life. So I am providing a service for a price. Now there is a huge market, and in that various kind of product manufacturers are each one claiming my brand of cigarettes is better than your brand of cigarettes. My cigarette is nicotine free, tar free, and all that nonsense you have to keep on claiming. So I have no problems. I have been comfortable. I can talk with Mr. Singh, who's a Sama, who's a Pandit, who's a great scholar. But I can also go and talk to a rickshawala downstairs and engage with him without looking down at him. By being completely engaged with him on his language. That's my need. So I use a different set of language, a different phraseology when I communicate with these two people. But essentially the need is to communicate, and I do it according to my understanding of what I think the product, the profile of the constituency is. And I said to you that you need to demolish your own non-existent greatness. The burden of your so-called greatness is the most difficult to bear. The world tells you, oh, you are a great filmmaker, you are the one who's going to steer the Indian cinema. Nobody's given me the mandate to create Indian cinema from here to there. I am a struggling, fumbling. The great thing was said by a man who changed my life was Charlie Chaplin. It was his address at the Oscars where he said, I did it for the money, you guys made it into an art. My mommy told me when I was 17, beta, your father is going through a bad time. We do not have enough money. The telephone will be cut for non-payment of bills. Go and do something. So I left home and I started doing odd jobs at petrol pumps and doing work. So I just joined the movies to make a living. Then I learned all these phrases and I've read books and I started fooling people. By, you read, go to the USIS, you go to British Library, you read 20 books and start showing off. It's like wearing coats, kind of. You go to a party, decide what kind of party it is, and you wear that kind of apparel, then go. It was so easy to fool people. But very difficult to feel the audience. The audience doesn't get fooled, It's very difficult to fool children and the masses. Intellectuals are the easiest to fool. Easiest to fool. So, this is what I did.
Sir, one last question I like to ask about the marketing theme is, you have seen the way you struggled actually, with your film Arth. Nobody wanted to see it, and somehow you managed to basically, show it to Rajshri, and this is how the film came out. And you have seen that in almost initial 10 to 15 years of your career, it was so difficult to promote your films. How technology, especially the social media that you have taken, so massively, with almost like, I think 500,000 followers you are having on Twitter. How this has changed for you? How things have evolved,
Marketing is very important. In fact, but the marketing potential is there in the choice of the idea. Yes, with Arth I had a big problem. I was brave enough to not adhere to the rules of the times that I was making that film. All my seniors, all the know-it-all said, this film will flop because in the film, the woman doesn't go back to her husband, doesn't go back to her lover. This is India, life is tradition, and all that kind of nonsense they told me, but I stuck to my guns, and the picture is being talked about because I dared be on my own. Yeah, no, but in it, inherently, it had an element. A good idea is like blood in the shark pool. You know, it's the audience just comes. Why? That's what the enigma continues. The film industry, with all its genius, all this marketing wizards, sit down there and say they're not honest enough to say they don't know what makes you guys go to watch a particular film and not go and watch another film. That's why they lean on stars, thinking the stars will at least ensure that. So I essentially choose subjects which can create that buzz. Like sexuality and erotica was consciously put by me because I chose not to work with stars. I would rather be a prostitute than a slave. You don't like me using erotica? Don't come and watch the film. But I don't want to be enslaved to your ideas of what you should be making films with. I mean, I don't want to make film with stars. I want to make films with my understanding, with the people I think are talented. And I made those films. But for that, I had to dare the wrath of the Pandazards and the Zarinas of culture and the purists, oh my God, pretending to be very upset. Then why the hell were those movies such big box office hits? Who came? People from Mars came to see the film? Everybody saw it. And the people who saw it paid money for it. If they did not see it, I wouldn't make those films. It's obvious. And the so-called good movies, which you said you must make, which gives you award, you did not go to see. It's like the classic, everybody talks about it, but nobody buys it. It's only there in your college library. So, this is a strange thing. So, I made those films believing that they would work, because I know privately what you do. And because I do the same thing. So, human beings are pathetically similar. If I like a dal, which is my favorite, you will like it. It's so simple as that. And I try to not mystify it, keep it simple.
I know, sir, the subject you hate the most is the finance. And luckily, you have Mukesh Bhatt to manage, that particular aspect for you. But a lot of these youngsters, who are starting their journey in MBA, with this particular session, many of them, they would like to start as an entrepreneur. And often a question comes to their mind is that they have the idea where the money will come. And you have always keep on mentioning is that don't bother, what you have in your back pocket, what do you have between your ears, and that's more important. What is your message to these people not to think of money, not to think of finance as a constraint? Because this was a major constraint, which made you to even, feed somebody and flesh off, dead
money. You see, money is very important. It's not a bad word. Money is the most, and the only metric in these times is money. In this, there was a time when the film's worth was, gauged by the critical acclaim and the awards it won in Moscow or at Cannes or at Berlin. Now it means nothing. The only yardstick is money. It has to make money. And the rules, mantra of the entertainment industry is a good film. A film is like a parachute. If it doesn't open, you're dead. So you better have a film that opens. Now, money is very important, and I think I want to tell you what a great filmmaker called, he was the man who made a film called State of Siege and Z, called Costa Gavras. He's from Greece filmmaker who made films of great repute in America. I met him when I was making Arth and Saransh. I said, what's your advice to young filmmakers? He said, son, make sure you get enough money to make the next film from the market. You can be the best writer, the best director. You can have the noblest of thought. But if you don't get money to invest on, you just forget it. This is something which a great man called Frank Capra, who was the big daddy of the Hollywood film industry, who also said the same thing. I remember I had 4 flops, and Sanjeev Kumar, the great actor, took me to see this documentary of Frank Capra and the USIS. And Frank Capra was saying in that if you don't get a film together, all your talent is worth nothing. You're more talented than I am, Ajay, but you have been unable to get your film on the floor. Unless you do that, unless they see it, all this talk of you being a genius is worthless. This is a fact of life. Now, I feel that it's the market. How will the market give you money? You give them hope, they give you money. That's it. What does a politician do? He gives you hope. He comes and makes empty noises from the platform, and you fall for that nonsense, and you give him money. You give your life, you put life on his down the line. That's all. That's what the holy man does. He gives you hope for the next life. And you give him money. At least we have to give you immediate gratification in 2 hours. Otherwise you throw rotten tomatoes at me. So I think we have to kindle hope in the investor. The investor is there. We have to make them feel that at least their money that they're investing is safe. And it wasn't easy. It took a lot of convincing. But it is more difficult to do without stars. So if one thing I'm proud of is, today, if a 20th Century Fox Big Daddy comes to me, he doesn't come to me because he wants Shah Rukh Khan through me. He wants to work with me. So why lean on a hero? Become a hero has been the maxim. And we have become that.
Fantastic, sir. Just one last question from me. After that, anybody of you would like to ask any question to Bhatt sir, most welcome to do that. Sir, how you manage your priorities? Because, of course, we met around the time when your last film was about to come, so I never had a opportunity to see you working. But a lot of, people, I was working, they said the Bhatt Sahib used to work actually sometime in 2 shifts and 3 shifts. So when we call the shift, they say 8 to 10 hours. So he will be basically working from, 6 o'clock in the morning till about 8 o'clock in the evening. And from there, he'll be driving to another venue, where he'll have a whole night shift, And I was told that in between the commuting time, that's the only time he used to sleep. So how you manage to basically manage your priorities and make sure that you are not tired and you are always, there. The cameraman actually who has worked with me, he was telling me that I was the most frightened actually, from him, because he was always attentive and we can't be basically, afford to, have any lapse of concentration.
Well, for that I can't take any credit. I was born that way. There was a DNA which I possessed. It was a gift of life to life. And I was born with this demonic energy, and it was there since childhood. I remember my mother used to telling me, "Pet pe kaisa raha hai tu?" And she used to say, "I will tie you up to the chair if you don't sit down still." I was born with a kind of energy, but I think you lose a lot of energy trying to be somebody else, don't you? Trying to pretend to be somebody else. Somebody tells you your face is not good enough, so you spend hours painting it. Somebody says the advertising racket. They first make you very uncomfortable with yourself. The whole advertising industry is that. It makes you uncomfortable with what you are, so that they can sell you what they have. So I think you spend so much of energy trying. You don't have to spend energy being yourself. You are yourself. Energy is spent in being somebody else. So the antidote to exhaustion is not rest, but wholeheartedness. Children play wholeheartedly. That's why they don't get tired. They keep on and on. Only when you're doing things half-heartedly that a part of you is here, a part of you is there, you're dragging. So I think I do not spend my energy trying to be somebody else. That doesn't mean I say everything that comes in my mind. I would be a psychopath and you'll burn me in the market square for being a heretic if I said every thought that comes in my mind. But in my personal day-to-day interaction, I would rather say what is there in my heart and be be authentic, not for the spiritual reason, but it's too much of a weight to carry. So that gives me a lot of energy. Like when I was pursuing this non-existent moksha and enlightenment, I used to spend 5 hours a day meditating, standing on my head, hanging from the trees. The moment I stopped doing that, I had so much energy to deal with the challenges of life. But I think even work is overrated, Ajay. I was an alcoholic, I gave up alcohol, and I became a workaholic. Work is also a painkiller. That was a dangerous phase. That phase where you say was a dangerous phase of my life. But workaholism is applauded, is rewarded, and appreciated by the system that we are all in. Because a workaholic seems to be more productive, but actually his quality of work is not so good. So that phase that you're talking about was a destructive phase. That was where I was filling my emptiness with a lot of work. But that has changed. I think I have enormous energy at my disposal, because I was born with that body, physiology, and I have nowhere to go, actually, but to do what I'm doing. So I have a lot of energy. Like if I'm talking to you right now, I'm giving all that I possess at this moment to this. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. What you make out of it is your affair. But I will give it all to it and leave it at that.
So very finally, among many conversations, one of the times we were talking about what's your big disappointment with the generation of today, and you said that they are very willing to be caged. They are very willing to be hired. They are very willing to be, boxed. And what you said, that what you miss in them, and you use this phrase, "Bhook asman ki hona chahiye." They do not have that kind of appetite.
I don't think anything wrong with this generation. They are brighter than me. They're more intelligent than me. And it's a fact. I don't find there anything wrong with them. In fact, I think parents would be very happy if they listen to their children more. Because life is telling you something through their mouths which you don't want to hear. And that's a fact. I listen to my children more. But the only difference is I hope my children listen to me the way these kids are listening to me. They don't listen to me. The moment I open my mouth, they say, "Oh, Dad, come off." So that's the problem of dads everywhere in every home. I think what the generation needs to perhaps introspect is what even my generation went through. When we spoke about freedom to smoke, freedom to drink, and that's where the story of the prodigal son comes. How can you be free of this and then be enslaved to a cigarette or enslaved to alcohol? Even that is a cage that you are actually going into. So it took me a while to understand that I call this freedom, but actually I'm slave to the substance. So I'm not a free man. So freedom is not actually from something, it's a state that you have to have a condition of your heart and your mind where you are not you don't have blinkers on your heart or your mind, where somebody else comes and tells you something completely different and you're willing to look at the world through that person's eyes and willing to modify and change or completely destroy your take on life. And I think what this generation only needs to know is that there are no quick fixes. The market may be selling you instant coffee. There's nothing like instant coffee here. There are no even in our business, this overnight success is a phenomenon that doesn't endure. All long productive careers have to be fueled by continuous work. We have to continuously fuel a career repeatedly with great work. Only then you become a durable brand. So there are no shortcuts. There are no quick fixes. And you're an impatient generation, that's very good. But what is very good about them, which I think my generation lacked, I didn't lack, my generation lacked, is they're not apologetic. They're confident. They can look into the eyes of somebody and engage with them. And I think for that, the media and even our generation has played a lot of a great role to create an environment like this. I mean, the teachers have done that. They allow you to be irreverent. They allow you to back answer, back chat. That was not done in our days. So I think they are impatient is good, they need to get rid of this fairy tale idea that there's a magic wand somewhere that if you wave, you'll get instant success, and then that success is permanent. There's nothing like permanent success. On the top of the hill, you have to fight 100 times more to stay there. Don't believe me, ask Manmohan Singh, ask Shah Rukh Khan. They will tell you.
Thank you so much, sir. I think after demonizing teacher, finally, you have given some word of consolation for them. They'll be happy. If there is any burning question, you people have, you're most welcome to ask. My questions will never over, but I think, the time is always a constraint.
So my name is Hannan Ahmed, and here we are felicitating the Guru Parampara तहजीब। और मैं शुरू करूँगा पहले एक ब्यूटीफुल उर्दू कपड़े से, क्योंकि यहाँ स्टूडेंट और आपकी तरह टीचर हैं। शुक्र है कि मस्जिद है मेरे घर से बहुत दूर, फॉर यू सर। शुक्र है कि मस्जिद है मेरे घर से बहुत दूर, चलो इसी बहाने एक बच्चे को पढ़ाया जाए। जो फूल खिला है बगिया में, उसके खुशबू को और बढ़ाया जाए। दिस इज फॉर यू एंड फॉर द स्टूडेंट। बट सर, इट इज नॉट माई क्वेश्चन बट माई रिक्वेस्ट अबाउट द फिल्मी दुनिया फॉर द current movies and daily show. Why it is so vulgar and so violence instead of honesty and related to the common life? The film shows and even the daily shows only vulgarity and impatient, not keep patient. Thank you, sir.
दुनिया यही दुनिया है तो ऐसी ये दुनिया क्यों है, यही होता है तो आखिर यही होता क्यों है, इसका उत्तर मेरे पास नहीं है। और मुझे नहीं लगता है, आई डोंट सी एनीथिंग रॉन्ग विद द वर्ल्ड। व्हाट विद दिस वर्ल्ड, दिस वी बीइंग व्हाट वी आर, दैट्स द काइंड ऑफ वर्ल्ड वी हैव क्रिएटेड। जो दुनिया है मेरा अक्सी तो है, मैं ही हूं। आई डोंट थिंक सो। आप you attribute more power to me. If books and movies could change the world would be a paradise. I don't think we have a very limited impact, and the real world requires different kind of builders. We create heaven in the virtual world. 2 घंटे में हम परियों की कहानी एक हैप्पी एंडिंग देते हैं। we are mood conditioners. जैसे गर्मी बहुत ज्यादा तो एयर कंडीशनर होता है, तो वी क्रिएट अ मूड। क्रांति जब तक आपके अंदर नहीं घटेगी, हमको नहीं लगता कि कुछ हमारे पास कुछ ऐसा है। यू एट्रीब्यूट मोर पावर देन वी हैव, वी डोंट हैव दिस पावर।
This question answer session is restricted to only the students and the faculty of IMI. I would request if any of the students or the faculty would like to ask a question, please raise your hand.
Good afternoon, sir. Sir, I believe we are a youth-dominated country. The average population is close to 21. So those are the kind of people who are looking for jobs. Since you spoke of the recent unfortunate incident where Ms. Jia Khan committed suicide, I believe there's a lot of pressure. So what do you think we as individuals can cope and handle this pressure?
Well, as I said when I read that piece, it was for not only for people who want to come into the world of movies, but yes, it is a hyper-competitive age that you're living in. It is a dog-eat-dog world. Stand on people's toes, climb on their shoulders. That's a fact of life. Don't ask me to make this into a fairer place. That is for the politicians to do that, to create a world which will give enough elbow room for everybody to survive. As of now, we have this much of water and so many people to kind of wanting to feed off it. So I would say that if you are suffering from what is called a biological condition, which is close to a mood disorder, which is depression, then seek medical intervention. Today, scientific technology has made it possible for you to cope with those kind of physical shortcomings that you may have because you have to run this race. First of all, you don't have to run the race. You want to run the race, or you've been told to run the race. And that's the kind of space we have created. So I would say that one of the one of the cushions that we had was our family. The family was a place which is to support us. And unfortunately, with the breaking up of the family system, the joint families and the large families coming into almost, single homes, I think that support system is going away. So have somebody close to lean on, somebody to wipe your tears when you are down. And I would say there are no shortcuts. Don't fantasize that the world will descend in your backyard. Be ready to struggle. As I read in my piece, struggle is something which even I do every morning. And after being in the business for almost 40 years, find that I have not reached anywhere where I can say, now I can relax, like that proverbial hare in that story that we heard in school, and sleep, because somebody else will overtake you. So I would say that, keep your family close, seek medical intervention if you feel that you cannot deal with the challenges of life. And finally, as I said in my in my context of my trade, that life is bigger than the movies. Your success is important for a kind of a lifestyle, but not, the world consists of more failures than successful people. But in this celebrity-driven age, I think it's a problem that you feel that if you don't come on page 3, your life is a failure. And this reminds me of a very serious conversation I had with one doctor who came to me. I had gone to a college like this on psychiatry, where I was talking to the students there, because I have some first-hand experiences of people suffering from depression. And this teacher came to me, and she's a doctor. She said, "Sir, I want to talk to you about something, because since you've made films like Saransh, which celebrates the common man, and Arth," and I said, "What is it?" She said, "Look, I have innumerable patients who come to me. They are bus conductors, they are shopkeepers who sell cigarettes, bidis, they are small-time plumbers. They have homes, one-room apartment in Bombay. They're taking care of their family. They have a television at home. They're sending their children to school. But they suffer from a sense of worthlessness because their wives and their daughters and their sons are all the time looking at some celebrity in the television or in newspaper, and they feel that our lives are a complete waste. We feel worthless." The world is not run by celebrities. The world is run by anonymous people who do innumerable acts of sacrifice, who keep the wheels of society moving. A celebrity is a nuisance after a point. It's okay to consume a celebrity in the morning for 1.5 minutes. It's also too much. See the picture, it's some kind of a comfort. But the wheels of a nation like this is moved by those people who will never... Was my mother a celebrity? No, she wasn't. Yet I owe everything of mine to her. Your mother, will she be a celebrity? So I think let us be brave enough to see that all of us will not have the misfortune to be a celebrity. Because you think it's a great thing to be a celebrity. Ask them what it is. But if you don't come in front of the TV, or if you don't come on page 3, your life is not a waste. Life is a gift. Enjoy it, live it, and it is much bigger than any star that is at the moment dancing on the television screen. Well, I realized that your management people, the Taj group of hotels hires people from the 2-tier cities, from Pune, from Dehradun, not from the cities, because they discover that people in that area, of life have more character, they have empathy, they are more needy. People in the city are perhaps more quote-unquote money-minded. And that was demonstrated. There was a study in your last students of management There's a fascinating study of the in the Harvard Business Review, where when the 2611 took place, it was the Taj staff which came to the rescue of 1,500 people who were there, and because of these, the mindset that they have, they come from small towns, and most of them they are recruited from small towns. The Taj group doesn't, I'm told, recruit people with great marks and fluent English. They look whether the person has a tendency to serve, because in the hospitality business you require a particular kind of temperament, and whether the person is in possession of the temperament. So they don't go for big names and big people who pass out from big universities like this. The chances of somebody from a small town making it to the Taj group are more than somebody from this institution. But to answer the question is that there has to be neediness, there has to be a fire in the belly. There was a guy who scored the music for a film Ashiki to Ankit Tiwari, who sang that Sun Raha Hai Na Tu. He came from Kanpur. He came to our office, and he had hunger in his body, entire being, and he had that arrogance that you just give me 5 minutes and I will mesmerize you. And it is that kind of stood out in our office. So we let him in, and then he sat down and he sang, and we all melted. Awesome talent. So there's no lack of talent. There's a lack of talent to spot talent in our country. So I feel that I prefer to take people who are hungry, who are driven, and in fact, the danger that I feel that I have to continuously fence with is in my own office, this bogus feeling of complacency that comes when you are successful. The success isolates you. Like politicians get isolated when they get successful. Leaders get isolated. Successful people get isolated. The next great star will come from somewhere behind. Some great singer will come from somewhere unknown space, somebody will come from. So that's what I keep my eyes focused on, because talent doesn't bloom only in your backyard. Like roses don't grow in the king's garden. They are a gift of life. They just grow everywhere. So if you have the eye of a good gardener, you will pick it up. And so that's what I think I try to do.
Question from Dr. Rizvi.
I think you are speaking very well till now. There is a three-part, as you see, filmmaker, writer, social activist, and probably we have touched upon that part of yours. You are known for being outspoken. You have stood up and faced the squad on issues which maybe touched your heart and so forth. You have arrived on the scene. You can take care of it, the opposition or anything that comes your way. I read somewhere that you are not only responsible for what you speak, but also for what you do not speak. Where do you get this courage? And I'm sure you have it. But what would you suggest, ordinary people like me, to have the courage to stand up and get counted when the chips are down, to be able to raise your voice for those who are possibly voiceless, to say something about issues which are kind of hampering our society and so forth? I would like to have some recipe on this from you.
My word. First of all, I don't think I'm a model that I would like to believe I am for others to seek any inspiration from. I am born with this kind of temperament. I was this way from the time I was a little boy. It's not something I developed or acquired over a period of time from some school or some teacher gifted it to me. I was just born this way. And my poor mother was very worried that because of this affliction, I would suffer. Yes, I did have my share of problems. I still continue to have my share of problems. I do get targeted, I do get isolated, but that's the price I choose to pay. A great icon like Dilip Kumar once asked somebody in Bradford, in London, I was interviewing him. Somebody said, we got Mr. Mahesh Bhatt to interview, sir, because of not his film background, because of the kind of work he's done in areas where people would not speak. This was post the communal situation in Gujarat. So he turned back and said, his courage needs to be investigated. So where do I get it from? I don't know. I think I was born with that. And my wife calls it a pathological trait, which she thinks puts all of us, she says, all of us in harm's way. So I said, well, everything has a price tag. If the life of opulence is possible because of this demon, then becomes the risk also of it. So I don't know. I think some people like this attribute of mine. My brother feels it's unnecessary because he's a shopkeeper, and he finds that his shop is under fire because of my so-called irresponsible utterances. But then, who says that freedom comes without a price? You have to fight for it, and I have chosen to live this way, but it does get lonely. Dissent is a lonely street to walk on, especially if that dissent is not being considered by you into a political advantage. You're not seeking to be picked up by some politician to be a part of the Rajya Sabha or the Lok Sabha, or you're using that to find a place next to God in heaven. You just do it because that's the way you are made. I think the character of Saransh of Anupam Kher in 84 was born from my heart. I mean, I'm just this way. Now, why is a lemon tree a lemon tree? It is a lemon tree. Why is Mahesh Bhatt a Mahesh Bhatt? I don't know. I was born that way. Blame it on my gene pool. And the journalist speaks.
Sir, I'm not asking you as a journalist. I'm asking you as a budding filmmaker.
I meant as a compliment. I didn't. You heard. I did not mean it as a sarcastic remark. Sorry.
I want to ask you, sir, how important is risk taking? Because all around I see people of my age. You directed your first film at 21. I'm 20. So I want to ask you, sir, how important is risk taking? I see people who want short jobs. They want this much package. Whatever is in them, they don't want to explore. They want surety in life. So how important is risk taking to explore yourself? I want to know from you.
Risk taking was also moving away from the platform of Mahesh Bhatt, the maker of Saransh and Earth, to making Jism and Murder and Raz. That also was risk taking. You don't see that. That was deconstructing the complete persona which everybody struggles a lifetime to arrive at, or respectable filmmaker who makes meaningful films. To hell with that label, I will do this. That was also risk taking. So risk is, if you're free, as I keep on saying, to worship the God, you can also be free to worship the devil. That's if you believe in the devil. I think risk is very important. If anything new comes with this fear around you, especially if you are in a movie business, everybody is frightened of taking the road less traveled on. And that's why one of the reasons why I keep my products low cost is because with low cost, the chances of you recovering the money are more. And then they allow you to experiment with that. But the moment you raise the cost, then they won't allow you to take that so-called risk. But I would say if the arts has anything to do with any one emotion, it's revolt. You have to revolt. You have to rebel. You have to disrupt status quo. And for that, you need to have, as he said, that I was perhaps, the filmmaker and the man are not different. They are the same. It's not something that you read from a book and say, no, let's try risk-taking for good business. you must have that. Like Gulshan Kumar, the man who was gunned down, was the one. No university he went to, but he was wiser than the most of the guys I've seen from the universities. But he believed in risk. He just dared. He just, when we first made this musical, he just came to me and said, let's make a film and I will market it like nobody can do it. And at that time we did everything which was not in the book. Like advertising all the songs on Doordarshan much before the film was released. He started the trend. And everybody said, oh, everybody has seen the songs now. Who will come to watch the film? But the fact was that it opened 100% houses because of that strategy. So there was risk-taking. The risk-taking was there in my bone and in earth when I said she will not go to the husband, she will not go to the lover. That was risk-taking. Risk-taking was in Ashiki too. How can you have in this time when the young people want nothing but pleasure, you have the hero kill himself and the girl is left all alone? Will it work with these rank newcomers who are not actually newcomers, they were rejects, both these people? I said, if the story touches the people's heart, it will work. It worked. One of the biggest hits of all times of ours. Biggest hits with newcomers ever made in this country. Biggest hits of all times ever made in this country with newcomers. Now that was risk-taking. So risk-taking is, and when you become very successful, that's more important for you to take risk. It's easy for you as a beginner to take risk because you have nothing to lose. But when you have something to lose, then risk-taking becomes very difficult. And I have had the gall to gamble it all after you have reached the peak. Because no matter what you do, my friend, nobody gets out of this den with any bank balance. We all go empty-handed. That's a fact of life.
Good afternoon, sir. I have a question. I've always had this question. In India, especially when all of us are so influenced by films, be it younger children or youth or even older people, should films be made to convey a message or inspire people, or should it be made for the purpose of entertainment? Because films like Saransh have changed our lives, and films like Murder have entertained us equally. So what, according to you, is more important?
To me, murder is very important. Because the answer would be, Saransh is very important. Because everybody reveres the Saransh, right? I don't see any contradiction between the two, as you said. Like you said, you find that also exciting. In this room, there is a Singh Saab who loves it. You also like it. Well, at times, I feel like making that kind of film. But I also want to make money. I want to travel in comfort. I don't want to have the anxiety which gnawed my childhood about, I don't know from where my next meal will come. I have been through those days of uncertainty. Money is an important tool. It's an important servant to have. Of course, each one draws his line how much money you want. There's no end to making money. But money is not a bad word. And for you, it's very important to understand that with money comes a certain amount of freedom. There's another story, you get enslaved to the idea of money also. And people become slaves to that. So to me, I would say that there's no difference between those kind of movies. But every film is a byproduct of the time that it is made in. And also reflects the filmmaker and his mental state. So we took this necessary route to make a cinema which is completely different from the Arth and Saransh, which was my launching pad. But that gave me a lot of muscle and brought the Hollywood mighty to my doorstep because of numbers. When the dust settles down, they all measures numbers. You don't believe all that the stars ratings and the critical rating, just forget about it. You know, that nobody cares a damn about. So I would say there are two streams of filmmakers. One was the Satyajit Ray School of Cinema, which nourished the Indian nation's appetite for what is called the alternate cinema. But there was Raj Kapoor, and there was Manmohan Desai, there were these great Yash Chopra who made films which were only on one simple maxim. If it makes money, it's a good film. That's the only yardstick. Forget about this, somebody saying this critical and position. Everybody has something to say on anything, no matter what you do. So I have no problem in oscillating between the two. The problem is those who like Saransh, they only want me to make a Saransh. The person who likes murder doesn't mind me if I make a Saransh. So the person who likes Saransh is more fascist. He says only my kind of cinema you make, then I'll call you a good filmmaker. But the guy who sees a mass film, a Sadak or a Naam of mine or an Ashki, he says, no, I like this kind of, you make that kind of cinema, I won't see it, but this is what I like. So I would say that poor fellow whom you mock at and feel superior to has more democratic spirit than the so-called evolved, discerning viewer who likes an Arth or a Saransh.
We have time for one last question.
Good afternoon, sir. The talks have been very insightful all day. So it's kind of emanating from there. There is usually this internal conflict of fulfillment, intellectual fulfillment versus making your ends meet. And, in such situations, people have usually taken two stands. They have either... They've taken two stands. So either they have molded their ideas to accept what works and say that, okay, let me just, mold my ideas a bit more to make it work. Or they have alternatively taken a stand and said, maybe there isn't a demand for it right now, but I will create that demand. People like your film like Saransh and even films like Ankahi by Satyajit Ray, those films, they did have a demand. For some people they did, maybe not commercially. So there are these, instances where you either take a stand or you mold your ideas, and it's definitely a tough decision-making position. So what really guides you in those times?
Who pays the bill when you make that so-called satisfying film is an important question. You see, when I take money from people to make a film, that person doesn't give it with this belief that I will get applause and get the national award and get the critics award, and he would be spending his left of his days in begging from door to door after having sold his house. There is a commitment that the investment will be safeguarded that he is giving me. There was a parallel cinema movement where the state came and said, we will make films. Because Indian cinema is making very bad cinema. We will teach them what good cinema is. And they started this kind of funding filmmakers. And a particular kind of cinema was patronized by the state. It had no bloody business to come in and patronize a particular kind of taste. It was taking money from the rickshawala, tangewala, and patronizing a kind of cinema which they were not interested in. And those films did not run. Why? Because nobody went to see them. Forget about cinema halls. They didn't even run on Doordarshan. Because when it came on Doordarshan, they shut it off. So I am saying that ultimately, if you have a creative zeal in you, cinema is a very expensive medium. It takes a lot of money today to make a film. Like I was telling this boy who's going to, is an actor in making, that you're making a film, fine. But to release that film is going to be a tough thing. Marketing is even more difficult. So at least 10 crore rupees, my dear, is what you require to make what is called a film, to entertain the idea that you may go in the morning and buy a ticket for that film. So for that, we need a kind of product profile which we think. It's also that most of the films made with that kind of objective also fail. But the answer is not simple. I must say that a film like Saransh was a box office failure. Yes, it made ends meet because it got critical acclaim and just broke even. It's a film that people will write on my obituary, but it's not a film that made money. It did not give me the means to travel in a business class to come here. So I would say that there are needs in me. There are some times when I feel like making an alternate film, like Zakham was a cinema which lost money, but I wanted to make that film. And when people give me the spiel on meaningful cinema and responsibility to society and all that, I say just get off your high horse. I have made more films which lost money to serve the so-called social causes. Tamanna, which dealt with female infanticide, was made by my daughter as the first film in '97. So we have made our share of so-called good films, lost a lot of money, got a national award and some medal which became dark in 3 months. But now we want to make money, so please don't deny us the right to make money. I beg of you, don't call us bad because we're making money.
Due to paucity of time, we won't be able to take any more questions. Ladies and gentlemen, with this we conclude this session. On behalf of IMI, we sincerely thank Mr. Bhatt and Mr. Kanchan for taking out time from their busy schedule and gracing us with their presence. We are sure that it has been very enlightening for each and every one present here. We request the guests to proceed for lunch to the lobby area. Students, kindly remain seated. Thank you.
Thank you.
Program office and administrative staff, please proceed to the BOC room.